exercise. Here's what we're going to do. Into Adobe Audition, I've already downloaded the zip file and unlocked the zip file. You need to do that first of all. So what I want to do is go File, Import File. So I click there, and what I'm going to do is import in all my audio. So I go to my downloads, and there is my top 5. Double click into there. There's all my audio. I'm going to click and hold and drag over and import in all of these files. Now, so there we have the audio for me doing the top 5 countdown. Now this is opened up in the single track view. And here I can do some editing. And if I want to do noise reduction, i.e. reduce background noise, this is the window I would need to do that in, or general volume increases. However, we need to work in the multi-track view because we'll be layering our tracks. So I go here and I go to multi-track. Click on there, and here it's going to ask me to name my session. I'm going to say Connor Top 5. Where am I going to save it to? Well, I'm going to put mine onto the desktop for the minute. There's the desktop. Hit choose. Now the sample rate for video, I would have that at 48,000 hertz or 48 kilohertz and 32-bit float. That's what I would do if I'm recording this for video. However, this is purely audio. And the audio was recorded at a sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz and a bit depth of 16. So I'm going to keep it as that. So therefore, I'm not going to be changing my audio formats to match the session. Everything is going to stay exactly the same. And I'm going to hit OK. And here I've now got all my tracks. My audio is still all there. And I've got multiple tracks. So I'm going to start off by bringing in my top 5. Here it is. Now notice WAV, they've all been recorded as WAV files. This one is SESX, and that's because this is the multi-track session. Notice that's what it's called there. This is not an audio file. This is only the file that would open up this session. So what I'm going to do is click and hold and drag in my top 5, and there is my audio. And I can click here anywhere on the timeline using my little selector tool. Time selection tool allows me to drop in anywhere in the timeline. Also allows me to click and hold and drag. And what I'm going to do is click here. I've got my play button here, or I can use my space bar as a shortcut. So I've got a bit of editing here to do. Okay, first of all, I'm going to hover near the start of my track, and that will turn into the trim tool, just like we do on Premiere Pro. I'm going to click, hold and drag. I'm going to drag it to, I think, here. And then I'm going to move to the start. So got my zoom tool here, zoom out and zoom in. So I'm going to zoom to the start. And I'm going to do a little trim here as well. So I want to get it right to the start. And then notice if I move to the top of the track, it turns to my move tool, and I can move that there.
Hello and welcome to Boom FM's Top 5.
So I need to do some editing here. Okay. I've got to Boom FM's, and I've got to Boom FM's there. So I'm going to use my razor tool, which is just here, shortcut R, and I'm going to see where to trim. And I've got 2 here. And I've got a 2 here, but I quite like this 2 more than the other one. So I'm going to put a wee cut in here, and then I'm going to do a cut here. And I'm using my mouse pad to zoom in and out as well, and I've got my zoom here. So now I've done this, I can then click here, and notice it's a razor tool, but again, move up to the top of the track, and it turns to the move tool. If I want to stick in the move tool, I can click here, or use V as my shortcut. Click on here, I can press delete, and it deletes, and I've left a gap. I can then, if I want, move that close, or Apple Z to undo, Apple Z to undo. I can as well do a right click and ripple delete, or space and delete. and it'll do a ripple delete, and it snaps it shut for me. Let's have a listen. Oh, and if you notice, I've missed the 2 out. So let's move this across, and here's what I can do. Notice my trim tool allows me also to trim audio back. So I'm going to zoom in to make sure I've got the right 2 here. I think so. Now let's move this back again. If there's a gap, I can always right click, ripple delete, gap, and it snaps it together for me.
Welcome to Boom FM's Top 5.
And there we are.
In at number 5, we have Beck with his all-time classic, Loser.
So I'm now going to put Beck in here. So what I'm going to do, again, to my razor tool, I'm going to make a wee cut in here. And that's just what I'm going to cut there. And I'm going to move this away. Let's move that away. Let's zoom in again using my mouse mat to do the zoom. And now I'm going to find Beck. And there's Beck. I'm going to click and drag and drop in. Now notice this is a stereo track. Let me hit V to go to my move tool. In which case on the one track we've got 2 independent tracks, a left and a right. But because they're recorded and set together, they're on the one track. Here's a mono. And notice there's no left or right track here. It's just one track. All music will be recorded in stereo, and everything for video would be in stereo as well. So I've now got my 2 tracks. I want to listen to Beck, just Beck. So I hit S and it solos Beck. So that's where there's a big hit, and you can see it in the waveform. I want that big hit to come just at the end of my voice, just there. So I'm going to click and hold and drag and move it to there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make sure it fits. Let's take off the S.
Hello and welcome to Boom FM's Top 5. In at number 5, we have Beck with his all-time classic, Loser.
I think it could be a little bit tighter, so I'm just going to move it there. Let's try it again. And that's good. But obviously, the music is too loud for my speech, so I need to bring the volume of the music down. What I do here is notice there's a yellow line here. If I hover over it, says volume. I'm going to, on my move tool, click on it once, it highlights it, and click on it twice, and I've put a wee keyframe marker in there. What that allows me to do is put another keyframe after that keyframe, and then I can click, hold, and drag, and I drag down the volume. I'm going to put another keyframe here, so it fades in. Let's have a listen.
Hello and welcome to Boom FM's Top 5. In at number 5, we have Beck with his all-time classic, Loser.
And there we go. And that is how I can bring in a number of tracks and do some editing. What I then do is just randomly going to put this in here and fade it down to nothing. There's a nice little gap there. I'm not so worried about where this is for this exercise. And then I'm going to bring in my next bit of speech. Let me zoom in again. Trim tool. Let's get it to exactly where it starts. And let's zoom in. Mouse mat playing around. And I think that's about the right place. Let's have a listen. And there we go. That's where I actually want to come in. Obviously, a few coughs as I'm doing that speech. Okay, let's bring that in. And what I'm going to do is trim to there. There we go. And move that again. I can see where my volume line has come down. So I'm going to move it just to there. Let's test that.
Number 4.
Oh, and I've trimmed a little bit too much. There we go. Let's hear it again. Okay, and then I want to put a little trim to razor cut there. And let's move this all the way along to give a bit of room for Billy to come in. And there's Billy just there. Click, hold and drag it onto the next track down. Now I might be getting a bit confused here with the amount of tracks, so what I'm going to do is click here where it says track 1. Call that VO for voiceover. Track 2 is Beck. And track 3 is Billy. So I'm going to go on to my move tool to make sure I don't accidentally cut anything. let's hear the start here. Oh, too much going on. I could mute these two tracks by hitting the M, and it's just Billy. But what is a lot easier is to hit the solo. And there we go. So I've got where Billy starts humming, and I think that's where I want to bring this in. Let's see where that is. Just there. So I'm going to put a marker here. That's where I finish talking. Click and drag across. And let's see how that sounds. Let's take the S off.
Billie Eilish, a bad guy.
Okay, that's not too bad. So let's then zoom in, because I might bring the volume down a little bit on Billy, just until I start talking. Again, I'm going to zoom in here and put a little marker here. And then fade that down. And then same thing as before, a little marker there, and fade in.
4, it's Billie Eilish, a bad guy.
That's too quiet. So let's just bring it up a little bit, and I can just click on those keyframes and bring it up. And I want to have it nice and flat as a flat bed underneath the speech, so it doesn't rise up and distract the speech.
It's Billie Eilish.
I'm going to bring it up a little bit more again. And there we go. And there's Billy carrying on. And then I simply repeat that for the rest of the songs. Exercise. But what I'm going to need to do is, if we notice here on my desktop, there's my folder. And there is indeed the session file. But if we notice, there's no audio files or anything like that there. So what I need to do is, I'm going to go File, Save. And it's going to say one or more of the media files is outside of the session folder. Do I wish to bring those in? And I'm going to say yes. And what it's going to do is take all the audio from my folder that was called Top 5 in the downloads, and has now brought them in here, and there's a folder called Imported Files, and there's all the files there that I've brought in. Now notice, Beck Loser, Billie Eilish, Top 5. It does not have these files, let's see, Grandma, etc., because they are all still stored on my downloads folder. And you can see there, that's where it's all stored. Now, what I will then do is go into my downloads folder, Top 5, and drag, oh, not into there, into downloads, Top 5, and I'm going to bring all of those into my Top 5 folder. So I always make sure all my audio is in the one folder. Very, very important. Now you notice we've got PKF files here. We don't like those. Those are little things that Adobe Audition creates. I'm not a big fan of them. So I'm back into my Adobe Audition. Here it is. And I'm going to go File, Adobe Audition, Preferences. And I'm going to go Media and Disk Cache. And I'm going to go Save Peak Files. We don't need them. They're not that important, and they will only confuse you. And go OK. Then I can go File, Save, and I can shut my work down. And there's my folder Top 5. Now I've got some repetitions in here. Top 5 WAV is also in my imported files. But it's better to have that than to have lost my audio.